I sit behind this massive oak desk in the quiet darkness of the Sovereign Archive. My name is the Auditor. The year was 1910. A single pound of wild Amazonian rubber fetched $3.06 on Wall Street. That made raw tree sap more valuable by weight than crude oil or coal. Mainstream history books focus on gold standard panics and dreadnought battleships. They treat raw commodities as mere background scenery for politicians. What nobody knew at the time was that the entire global industrial network rested on a fragile botanical monopoly. Without latex, the engines of modern capitalism would grind to a dead halt. Balance sheets were secretly written in rubber. Long before the Industrial Revolution, European explorers encountered raw rubber in the tropical forests of South America. Indigenous Amazonian tribes called the sticky tree sap caoutchouc, meaning weeping wood. They used the dried sap to create waterproof shoes and bouncing game balls. French scientist Charles-Marie de la Condamine sent the first scientific latex samples to the French Academy of Sciences in 1736. European chemists were baffled by the material. They found that it rubbed away graphite pencil marks, giving the substance its common English name. Yet for over a century, rubber remained a minor scientific curiosity without commercial application. In the early 19th century, raw natural rubber was little more than a frustrating chemical curiosity. The sticky sap harvested from South American rubber trees melted into foul-smelling goo under summer heat. It turned brittle and shattered like cheap glass during freezing winter weather. Early manufacturing pioneers lost massive private fortunes trying to commercialize waterproof boots and raincoats. Factories went bankrupt when stored inventories turned into useless sludge inside hot warehouses. Financial capital markets viewed latex ventures as an uninsurable gamble. Wall Street loan syndicates routinely rejected rubber funding applications. That systemic financial deadlock shattered completely in 1839. An impoverished American inventor named Charles Goodyear accidentally dropped a mixture of raw latex and elemental sulfur onto a red-hot stove. The violent chemical reaction transformed the unstable sap into a durable heat-resistant compound. Goodyear named his patented thermal process vulcanization. Suddenly, latex possessed true structural elasticity across extreme temperature shifts. European patent attorneys rushed to file industrial claims in London and Paris. International merchant banks realized that vulcanized rubber was no longer a luxury novelty. It was the essential binding material of industrial civilization. The rapidly expanding Industrial Revolution devoured vast quantities of vulcanized latex. High-pressure steam engines required flexible rubber gaskets to prevent deadly pressure blowouts. Heavy factory machinery relied on continuous rubber transmission belts to transfer horsepower from steam boilers to manufacturing floors. Deep-sea telegraph lines wrapped thousands of miles of underwater copper wire in protective rubber sheaths. Without this bouncy organic polymer, electrical distribution networks could not function safely. European central banks began tracking rubber imports as a core indicator of national industrial strength. Capital flowed aggressively toward any syndicate capable of supplying raw latex. Global latex demand escalated into a wild speculative panic in 1888. A Scottish veterinarian named John Boyd Dunlop patented the air-filled pneumatic tire for bicycles. Within 5 years, tens of millions of bicycles flooded Western European and American cities. Shortly after, the early automotive industry emerged in Detroit, Paris, and Stuttgart. Early motor cars consumed raw latex at an unprecedented scale. For automobile tires required dozens of pounds of high-grade raw rubber. Every new car rolling off assembly lines amplified global commodity demand. Global raw material supply faced an insurmountable natural bottleneck. The entire global market depended on one single botanical species. That tree was Hevea brasiliensis. It grew natively inside the dense, untamed tropical rainforests of the Amazon basin. Wild rubber trees grew isolated from one another across millions of square miles of dense jungle. Amazonian soil harbored aggressive natural leaf blights that destroyed dense clusters of cultivated rubber trees. Large-scale commercial farming inside South America was biologically impossible during the 19th century. Harvesting wild jungle trees remained the only viable production method. The Republic of Brazil held a rigid international monopoly over the global latex trade. Brazilian federal laws strictly prohibited the export of living rubber trees, tissue, or seeds under penalty of treason. Foreign industrial buyers were forced to purchase raw latex through Brazilian river syndicates. Banking houses in London, Paris, and New York issued massive foreign sovereign bonds backed directly by Brazilian export tariffs. The Amazonian rubber boom became a massive global financial bubble driven by extreme debt leverage and ruthless labor exploitation. The hidden financial mechanism driving this jungle extraction was the debt peonage system known as aviamento. Merchant houses in Belém and Manaus advanced credit lines to local river traders. River traders advanced overpriced tools, food, and ammunition to impoverished native tappers deep in the jungle. Tappers signed binding contracts pledging their future latex harvests to clear their growing store balances. Store owners charged 300% markups on basic survival rations. Tappers were legally forbidden from leaving their assigned jungle tracts until their accounts reached zero. Think about that for a second. Thousands of tappers were trapped in perpetual debt slavery to feed Western auto assembly lines. Follow the money. High interest rates ensured tappers could never clear their initial ledger debts. If an indebted tapper attempted to escape downriver, private armed guards hunted him through the jungle. In the Putumayo River region, foreign rubber syndicates used torture and forced labor to enforce harvest quotas. The Peruvian Amazon Company raised millions on the London Stock Exchange while running brutal slave camps in the rainforest. Corporate balance sheets hid extreme human atrocities beneath polished financial dividend reports. In 1910, British diplomat Sir Roger Casement investigated the Putumayo rubber terror on behalf of the British Foreign Office. His horrifying official report exposed how London investors financed systemic atrocities against indigenous populations in South America. Over 30,000 native people were tortured or worked to death to harvest latex for European commodity markets. The public exposure shocked London society and triggered parliamentary debates. Yet despite moral outrage across Western capitals, commodity markets continued buying Amazonian rubber at record prices. Financial profits completely outweighed human rights concerns on corporate ledgers. The profits flowing into Amazonian port cities reached staggering heights. The remote jungle outpost of Manaus, located 900 miles up the Amazon River, transformed into an opulent metropolis overnight. Obscure river traders became multimillionaires within a single harvest season. Foreign capital flooded local financial institutions. Manaus imported European architects, Carrara marble, and French wrought iron to construct grand municipal avenues. Local elites washed their horses in imported bottled water and sent their fine linen to Europe for professional dry cleaning. Private electric streetcars operated in Manaus before they appeared in major European capitals. The ultimate symbol of this rubber wealth was the Grand Teatro Amazonas Opera House. Constructed in 1896, the extravagant palace cost over $2 million in pure gold-backed currency. Italian masters painted vast celestial frescoes across the auditorium ceiling. The central exterior dome featured 66,000 gilded ceramic tiles shipped directly from Alsace. World-famous European opera stars were paid massive gold fortunes to perform deep inside the South American jungle. Local rubber barons sat in private boxes while cooling expensive French champagne with massive blocks of ice shipped from North American glaciers. Western industrial cartels grew deeply alarmed by their total reliance on South American rubber supply. Latex prices swung wildly based on seasonal rainfall, Amazon River navigation levels, and Brazilian political unrest. Manufacturing leaders in Britain and America faced volatile raw material input costs. Automobile manufacturers could not plan multi-year factory expansions when latex prices fluctuated by 300% within a single quarter. British imperial strategists in London decided to execute a covert economic strike against the Brazilian monopoly. The British Empire mobilized its global scientific network to carry out botanical espionage. In 1876, the India office secretly hired an English explorer named Henry Wickham. Wickham operated near Santarém on the lower Amazon River. His explicit mission was to collect viable seeds of Hevea brasiliensis for the British Crown. Wickham hired teams of native workers to gather over 70,000 fresh rubber seeds deep in the rainforest. Rubber seeds possessed extremely delicate oily shells that rotted quickly in high humidity. Time was his greatest enemy. Wickham chartered an ocean steamship named the SS Amazon. He loaded dozens of wooden crates packed with damp moss and rubber seeds into the vessel's cargo holds. Brazilian port authorities at Belém inspected foreign ships leaving the river system. Wickham officially declared his cargo crates as rare, delicate botanical specimens collected personally for Queen Victoria's private gardens at Kew. Brazilian customs officers, bribed with British gold and misled by official documents, cleared the steamship without opening the sealed wooden containers. Pay attention to this next detail because it explains everything. A single fraudulent customs manifest destroyed the entire South American economy forever. And no, I'm not making that up. 70,000 stolen seeds ended 3 centuries of Brazilian economic dominance in a single afternoon. The SS Amazon crossed the Atlantic Ocean at full speed. Wickham landed in England and delivered his botanical cargo to the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew in London. British scientists worked night shifts in specialized steam-heated greenhouses to germinate the stolen seeds. Only 2,700 seeds survived the transatlantic voyage and successfully germinated at Kew Gardens. Yet that small biological sample contained enough genetic code to construct a global agricultural empire. British imperial authorities carefully packed the fragile green seedlings into protective glass Wardian cases. The shipments were loaded onto royal steamships bound for British Crown colonies in Ceylon and Singapore. The strategic objective was clear. Britain intended to transfer global rubber production from wild South American rainforests to controlled Asian agricultural plantations. Initial attempts to establish rubber estates in Southeast Asia encountered heavy resistance from colonial coffee and tea planters. Local landowners refused to clear profitable cash crops for untried rubber trees. Rubber saplings required 7 long years of careful cultivation before producing harvestable latex. Private colonial investors balked at locking up corporate capital for nearly a decade without immediate dividend payouts. British imperial banks intervened by offering long-term, low-interest mortgage loans to plantation syndicates willing to plant rubber trees. The critical agricultural breakthrough was engineered by a British botanist named Henry Ridley. Ridley was appointed director of the Singapore Botanic Gardens in 1888. Local colonial administrators dismissed his tireless advocacy for rubber farming as an unhinged obsession. They openly mocked him in public as Mad Ridley. Disgruntled planters routinely threw his promotional latex samples back into his face. Yet Ridley persisted in his research. He developed a scientific harvesting technique called herringbone tapping. Wild Amazonian tappers chopped deep gouges into rubber tree trunks with heavy iron axes. That destructive method scarred the living wood, caused bacterial infections, and killed trees within a few seasons. Ridley's herringbone technique involved shaving delicate diagonal grooves into the outer bark layer with a specialized curved knife. Latex sap trickled smoothly down the channels into collection cups without damaging the tree's internal vascular system. A single rubber tree could now yield high-grade latex continuously for 30 consecutive years.
Crop yields per acre surged dramatically.
The British Empire converted millions of acres of tropical rainforest in Malaya and Ceylon into dense, highly organized rubber plantations. British syndicates planted trees in precise, uniform geometric grids. Clean agricultural weeding prevented the spread of leaf blight fungi that crippled South American trees. Dutch colonial investors observed the British success and planted massive rubber estates across Sumatra and Java. Wall Street and London financial houses launched speculative investment trusts to acquire vast Asian land concessions. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Asian plantation rubber completely redefined the global physics of industrial production. A wild Amazonian tapper spent grueling hours walking miles through dense jungle paths to tap scattered trees. An Asian plantation worker managed hundreds of high-yielding trees planted in neat rows within a compact area daily. Labor productivity skyrocketed exponentially. Harvesting latex shifted from a dangerous wilderness venture into a disciplined, assembly line factory operation. In 1910, a wild speculative boom swept the London Stock Exchange, known as the Great Rubber Mania. London tea houses on Mincing Lane were converted into chaotic trading rooms overnight. Over 300 new Asian rubber plantation syndicates filed corporate prospectuses in London within 12 months. Speculators bought shares in unplanted jungle tracts across Malaya and Borneo. Stock values in established rubber syndicates like Dunlop and Harrison's and Crossfield surged over 5,000%. Office clerks and retail investors poured their life savings into paper shares backed by distant Asian rubber trees. By 1910, the first massive harvests of Asian plantation rubber hit international commodity exchanges. Mincing Lane in London became the undisputed central hub of global rubber trading. The arrival of Asian plantation rubber triggered a sudden market collapse that devastated South America. Asian plantation latex flooded European markets at a tiny fraction of South American production costs. In 1910, raw latex traded at $3.06 per pound. By 1912, the massive influx of Asian supply forced global prices below 50 cents per pound. The Brazilian rubber economy experienced complete financial ruin within 24 months. Brazilian river barons defaulted on millions of dollars in foreign bank loans. Major financial houses in Belém and Manaus declared bankruptcy. Construction on lavish mansions and civic projects halted instantly. Opera companies fled Manaus as municipal funds completely evaporated. The Teatro Amazonas Opera House stood dark and silent inside the encroaching jungle.
Jungle foliage slowly reclaimed abandoned boomtowns.
Hundreds of thousands of rubber tappers were left stranded in the jungle without food, medical supplies, or wages. The global economic center of gravity shifted entirely to London and Amsterdam. By 1914, British and Dutch corporate syndicates controlled over 90% of global natural rubber supply. The British Empire held an iron monopoly over the foundational raw material powering Western industrial transport, telecommunications, and heavy manufacturing. American automotive leaders in Detroit watched with growing anxiety as their total dependence on foreign raw materials turned into a grave strategic liability. In August 1914, World War I exploded across the European continent. Industrialized combat immediately demonstrated that natural rubber was a paramount military weapon. Armies mobilized millions of soldiers using motorized truck fleets rather than traditional horse-drawn supply wagons. Heavy field artillery pieces relied on thick vulcanized rubber tires to traverse muddy combat zones. Submarines utilized miles of rubber insulation to protect complex electrical drive batteries. Military combat aircraft required rubber shock absorbers and specialized fuel hoses. Chemical warfare created an urgent military requirement for high-purity natural latex. The deployment of poison gas demanded airtight flexible rubber face masks to protect front-line troops from chlorine and phosgene gas. A combatant nation cut off from raw latex faced total military annihilation. The British Royal Navy enforced a tight naval blockade against Germany. British warships intercepted neutral cargo vessels and confiscated all raw rubber shipments heading towards central power ports. Germany felt the devastating strategic impact of the British rubber blockade almost immediately. Raw latex prices inside blockaded Berlin reached absurd black market heights. German military supply trucks were forced to run on bare iron rims wrapped in heavy spring wire or rope. The violent vibration shattered truck axles, destroyed paved roads, and crippled military logistics on the Western Front. German chemical scientists at IG Farben attempted to produce synthetic substitutes, manufacturing a crude chemical polymer called methyl rubber. German methyl rubber proved to be an absolute technical disaster on the battlefield. The synthetic compound was expensive to manufacture, sticky in heat, and turned brittle in winter cold. Heavy military vehicles fitted with synthetic tires shook their transmission gears to pieces on paved roads. German command staff spent millions in gold reserves attempting to scale synthetic production without success. The severe lack of natural latex crippled the German army. British financial planners noted that botanical monopoly power had proven just as decisive as naval artillery. I lean forward under the green glass lamp of the Sovereign Archive. The year is now 1922. The war was over, but the financial games were just escalating. British plantation cartels found themselves drowning in a massive post-war rubber surplus. Prices plummeted to 6 pence a pound. So what did the British government do? Sir James Stephenson drafted a secret colonial cartel scheme. They restricted rubber exports by law to force global prices back up. Wall Street was furious. American auto giants consumed 70% of world rubber, but owned 0% of the trees. It was a cold monetary squeeze on American consumer wealth. If you are enjoying this deep dive into hidden resource wars, hit the subscribe button right now to support our independent historical archive. Now, let us look at how America fought back. The Stevenson Plan of 1922 was a calculated state-sponsored cartel operation. British imperial authorities limited latex exports from Malaya and Ceylon through strict colonial quotas backed by naval law. Raw latex supply artificially contracted across international commodity exchanges. Within 3 years, world rubber prices exploded upward by over 400%. American tire manufacturers faced crushing production costs. United States Secretary of Commerce Herbert Hoover publicly condemned the British colonial cartel as an illegal international extortion scheme designed to drain American gold reserves. American industrial titans resolved to establish their own corporate rubber colonies to break British dominance. Harvey Firestone, founder of the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, launched an aggressive global search for independent plantation land. In 1926, Firestone signed a secret 99-year lease agreement with the government of Liberia. The master contract granted Firestone 1 million acres of West African tropical land at an annual rental fee of just 5 cents per acre. Firestone invested tens of millions of dollars to build the largest continuous rubber plantation on Earth. Firestone effectively converted the sovereign nation of Liberia into a corporate rubber territory. The Firestone Reserve Bank was created to control domestic Liberian government finances and tax collections. Liberian sovereign debt was restructured through high-interest loans backed by Wall Street investment syndicates. American managers supervised tens of thousands of Liberian laborers tapping latex under grueling tropical plantation conditions. Wall Street banks underwrote the Liberian venture to guarantee a permanent, American-controlled supply of strategic latex. Simultaneously, American automotive icon Henry Ford initiated his own legendary rubber enterprise. In 1928, Ford purchased 2.5 million acres of wild land along the Tapajos River deep inside the Brazilian Amazon. He named his ambitious corporate colony Fordlandia. Ford sought to build a vast industrial city deep in the jungle that would bypass British rubber brokers entirely. He constructed modern American suburbia, paved concrete roads, golf courses, power plants, and automated sawmills deep inside the rainforest. Fordlandia turned into a catastrophic multi-million-dollar corporate disaster. Ford's industrial engineers cleared dense native rainforest and planted millions of rubber trees in tightly packed agricultural rows. They ignored basic biological science. South American leaf blight fungi and destructive insect swarms attacked the concentrated trees instantly. Millions of cultivated rubber trees withered and died within months. Ford poured over $20 million into the jungle city without producing a single commercial tire for his Detroit car factories. The Stevenson Plan eventually collapsed under its own internal financial contradictions in 1928. Dutch colonial planters in the East Indies refused to participate in the British cartel. Dutch rubber estates expanded production rapidly to capture lucrative American market share, while British producers held back exports under government quotas. The global market flooded with Dutch latex, shattering artificial price floors. British cartel managers were forced to abandon export restrictions entirely. Yet the geopolitical lesson was clear. Control over raw material supply chains was a lethal weapon of economic warfare. During the interwar period, powerful corporate cartels formed dark transnational alliances over synthetic rubber technology. In 1929, American oil giant Standard Oil of New Jersey signed a secret patent-sharing pact with German chemical cartel IG Farben. Under the agreement, Standard Oil received international synthetic gasoline rights, while IG Farben retained control over synthetic rubber patents. When World War II approached, IG Farben refused to share critical Buenos synthetic rubber manufacturing processes with American firms, while Standard Oil withheld domestic synthetic rubber development to honor the German contract. In 1942, United States Senator Harry Truman headed a congressional investigation that exposed the treasonous corporate cartel between Standard Oil and IG Farben. The committee revealed that American corporate leadership had allowed German industrial interests to bottleneck Allied synthetic rubber development. The public outrage forced Standard Oil to surrender its synthetic rubber patents to the United States government without royalty payments. Corporate cartels had placed foreign profit agreements ahead of national defense priorities. By the late 1930s, the dark shadow of another global war descended over Pacific trade routes. Imperial Japan viewed Southeast Asian rubber plantations as the ultimate strategic prize. Japanese military strategists recognized that Western industrial powers were completely vulnerable to a sudden cutoff of Asian raw latex. In December 1941, Imperial Japanese forces executed coordinated amphibious invasions across Malaya, Singapore, and the Dutch East Indies alongside the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. Within 90 days of entering World War II, Imperial Japan captured Malaya, Singapore, and the Dutch East Indies. Overnight, the Axis powers controlled 90% of the global natural rubber supply. It was one of the most swift and devastating resource cutoffs in human financial history. The Allied war machine faced immediate physical paralysis. The United States possessed less than 1 year of natural rubber reserves inside national defense stockpiles. The United States government launched an unprecedented emergency mobilization program. President Franklin Roosevelt appointed a national rubber director equipped with dictatorial wartime economic powers. The federal government imposed strict rubber rationing across the domestic civilian economy. Gasoline sales were strictly controlled, not to conserve oil, but to prevent civilians from wearing down automobile tire tread. The national speed limit was legally capped at 35 miles per hour to minimize tire wear. American families gathered old rubber boots, floor mats, and garden hoses for mandatory government scrap drives. Allied military survival depended entirely on a massive chemical technology breakthrough. The United States government established the Emergency Synthetic Rubber Program in 1942. Federal funding agencies invested over $700 million tax dollars to construct state-owned synthetic rubber production facilities. The War Production Board forced competing chemical and tire corporations to merge their private patent portfolios. Standard Oil, DuPont, B.F. Goodrich, and Firestone shared secret manufacturing formulas under federal command to scale synthetic production. The Industrial Coalition engineered a successful synthetic compound called GRS, short for government rubber styrene. Synthetic manufacturing scaled up at a staggering industrial rate. In 1941, total American synthetic rubber output was under 8,000 tons per year. By 1945, American synthetic rubber factories produced over 800,000 tons annually. This monumental chemical mobilization prevented Allied military forces from grinding to a catastrophic halt on the battlefields of Europe and the Pacific. In 1946, French tire manufacturer Michelin patented the radial tire, creating a new structural demand for natural latex. Radial tires required significantly higher proportions of natural rubber than traditional bias-ply tires to maintain sidewall flexibility and structural strength. As radial tires became the global standard during the late 20th century, demand for natural latex rebounded dramatically. Post-war chemical factories could not replace natural sap for high-stress industrial applications. Even today, in 2026, synthetic polymers cannot match the extreme tear strength, flexibility, and heat dissipation of natural Hevia latex. Modern commercial airliner tires, heavy mining equipment, and military jet landing gear are manufactured using up to 100% natural rubber. Over 90% of global natural rubber supply still originates from Southeast Asian farms. A single severe fungal outbreak in Asia could cripple international air travel and military logistics overnight. The forgotten history of the rubber wars reveals a permanent law of global economics. Paper currencies, central bank liquidity, and digital balance sheets are fundamentally worthless without secure access to vital physical resources. Financial capital can fund mining operations and agricultural cartels, but physical control over supply bottlenecks always dictates sovereign power. The botanical espionage of the 19th century established the blueprint for modern resource conflicts. Today, the world's superpower empires wage identical secret financial wars over lithium deposits, cobalt supply chains, and semiconductor fabrication plants. I slowly lower the green banker's lamp in the sovereign archive. The room falls into deep shadow. My name is the Auditor. From the abandoned opera house of Manaus to the corporate rubber plantations of Liberia, history is written in balance sheets and raw material monopolies. Leave a $ or coin symbol in the comments if you decoded this hidden economic mechanism. Subscribe now and click the video on screen to step inside our next historical archive.